On this edition of In the Gun, spring practice rolls along for the WVU Mountaineers. A familiar face could be heading back to the NFL, and a familiar face heading back to the Mountaineers roster as well. All of that and more on this edition of ITG.
You are now watching Believe.
ITG.
With Wes, Owen, and Jed.
I've got the best teammates in the business.
No way!
They both played the game. They both know the game. Owen is the runaway beer truck known for having some fun.
Owen Schmidt, you have the podcast In the Gun.
Owen Schmidt, like a runaway beer truck down the sidelines.
Jed is the signal caller who is the X's and O's and the brainiac.
Statistically, always punting on fourth down makes no sense.
So we've combined those two skill sets.
Skills I've acquired over a very long career.
You are In the Gun.
Once you enter this family, there's no getting out.
In the Gun, episode 234 of your new favorite WVU football podcast. I'm Wes Schuler, as always, with the best teammates in the business. On this edition of ITG, I've got the signal caller, Jed Drenning, and you already know we're brought to you in part by our friends at Bet Online. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, Bet Online has you covered with odds, stats, and more from every game, every play, and every win. It's all at Bet Online. The game starts here. We will obviously do a little around campus as March Madness is looming and the Mountaineer basketball team looks poised to return to the dance, albeit with a frustrating result in the Big 12 tournament. We'll touch on that in just a second. Also, a member of the WVU coaching staff that is near and dear to all of our hearts. Sounds like he's heading back to the National Football League. We will get to that. But we start today with some heavy hearts. Jed and I have each lost a friend in the last few days who, in some ways more than others, have ties to the WVU football program, to Jed and I, to Rich Rodriguez, to Morgantown, and we feel it's the right thing to do to give a final thank you to these men, to grieve and celebrate their life at the same time. The first being Craig Wolfley, who, of course, is the oldest of the Wolfley brothers. Dale Wolfley, of course, Mountaineer legend and the master of the boom, who passed away, when I want to say 7-8 months ago, Jed, if my timeline is correct. His oldest brother, Craig. Obviously, Dale had two older brothers, Ron, who played fullback at WVU and works for the Arizona Cardinals and in radio in Arizona, and Craig, the oldest of the three boys, who was a Pittsburgh Steelers offensive lineman in the 80s, played for the Minnesota Vikings for a couple years at the end of his career. And Craig has now been decades in the broadcast booth as a sideline reporter and then a color commentator. And as a guy who's hosted a morning show in Pittsburgh for a long time with Tunch Ilkin, who passed away 4 years ago, and over the last couple years with Max Starks, another former Steelers offensive lineman. Wolf passed away Monday morning. I guess Pittsburgh Wolf, because as we know, like we talked about this when Dale passed away, to know any of the Wolf brothers was to know all of the Wolf brothers, and they were just Wolf to everybody in their life, whether you were in Pittsburgh or Morgantown or Arizona or Buffalo, where they're all from, the Orchard Park area. Wolf passed away, Craig Wolfley, the oldest of the Wolfley brothers, Dale's oldest brother, Monday morning at the age of 66 after a battle with liver cancer. And it's been cruel. It's been difficult. It all happened very quickly. He just got the diagnosis a little over a month ago at the end of the Steelers season, and obviously hit chemo and radiation and all those things hard. But it was just it's one of those things we all know. Like cancer is a bitch. And Jed, you do sometimes get those cancer diagnoses that are, hey, we caught this fairly early. It's pretty treatable. We think this is going to be okay. You also, unfortunately, way too often get those diagnoses of this is pretty advanced, and this is going to take a minor miracle to persevere through. And unfortunately, Craig's was the latter. We knew that it was bad, but much like all the Wolfleys, they're larger than life. You just almost assumed that he was going to find a way to kick this thing's ass, that he was going to find a way to hang around for a long time and battle this and hang with us and stay with us for a while. And I'm sure, a lot of that is just selfishly is we don't want to lose people. But about 5-6 weeks after his diagnosis, Craig Wolfley, age 66, did pass away Monday morning. A lot of you who knew him through his brother Dale, a lot of you who knew him through his brother Ron, a lot of you who knew him just through his broadcasting career and all of his time in the National Football League and with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Jed, I've worked with Dale pretty much every Dale. I'm going to do that a few times, I imagine. I've worked with Craig pretty much every day for the last 7 or 8 years. Was fortunate to call him a friend. Was fortunate to call him a mentor. And man, the football landscape in Western Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh will never be the same without that guy. Legend at Syracuse, legend with the Steelers, but he perhaps meant more to Pittsburgh than football and all the work that he did for the Light of Life ministry, feeding the homeless, housing the homeless, raising money for charities. Just a incredible human being with a massive heart. And it's as tough as it is to do here. Again, with the ties to his family, with the ties to West Virginia, we thought it was only right to remember Craig Wolfley here at the start of this episode.
Yeah, for sure. And so many things going through my mind as you say that. First of all, Craig Wolfley was very good at what he did. And what I mean by what he did was as a player, very good football player, very good broadcaster, very entertaining broadcaster. And we'd be remiss, and I'm glad you used the phrase larger than life, to talk about a Wolfley without using that phrase, because all three larger than life. And you threw me there. I thought when you first said 4 years ago with Tunch Elkin passing away, I thought, no way, because here's what I remember about Tunch, and it kind of comes full circle.
It's hard to talk about one without talking about the other.
Well, we were on the road at Maryland for the opener. And by Wolf, I mean Dale, was a few minutes late coming out to the bus to make our way over to the stadium. And when he got on the bus, that's how I found out. And he was shook up.
I'm sure.
Craig obviously had told Dale. Craig was tight with Tunch, with the Steelers. So was Dale. So we lost Dale a blink ago. It's been a tough stretch for the Wolfley family. Send them love and prayers. Tough stretch for their mother. Tough stretch for Ronnie. Tough stretch for all of them. But here's the Craig Wolfley story, and I shared it to you before you got on the air. I can't think of him through all these years. I still think of one thing first when I think of Craig Wolfley. He took the time back in 1981 at Steelers training camp in Latrobe. My mom and dad took me and my brother to Steelers training camp, kind of just a trip we took. My mom was from southwestern PA, had family up in Westmoreland County. And so that was kind of a treat to us, was we're going over and check out the Steelers in Latrobe. And after practice, one of those grueling days in July or August, there was one guy. The rest of the Steelers had made their way back into the dorms, and there was one guy still going through some drill work by himself, still in full gear out there. And we didn't even know who it was. Me and my brother were like, "It's a Steeler. We're getting an autograph, right?" Well, this gentleman was kind enough to take the time. Me and my brother had gold T-shirts on, so we're going WVU or Steelers, right? It was gold.
That's right.
We could have covered it either way. And we had black marker, and Craig came over, took the time to write a note on the back of my shirt, like on my back, on my brother's back. We kept those shirts for a number of years. Now they belong to the ages. But for a good while, we kept those shirts. And when you texted us with this message a few days ago of what had happened and how suddenly it had happened, and it just, we were all heartbroken. I can't imagine, what you're going through, being as close to him on a daily basis as you have been. But what I did was I started looking up some different things about Craig. And again, he was a great football player. He was, like third team on some of these All-American teams as a junior at Syracuse in the late 70s. He was a first team All-East before the Steelers took him. I think he was a rookie in 80. So I looked it up because I wanted to know, how old was he? He was only 66 years old.
66, yeah.
And I'll tell you what, now I'm in my mid-50s, approaching 55 here coming soon. 66 isn't what it used to be, And So I thought, how old was he when he took the time to do that with us? So if memory serves, a couple days ago, I looked. I think he was 22 when he did that.
Probably his
So
rookie season. Yeah.
it was either his rookie or second year because
Yeah.
he was a young rookie, if I remember right.
He was, yeah.
And so he spent a life. You talked about all the causes off the field, outside the lines. He really took some time to spend a few minutes with just these two doofuses that were out there, two little kids out there. He didn't have to do that, but he did, and it was really cool. And I remember it made an impression on both of us. And I forever remember that name, Craig Wolfley, on the back of that golden T-shirt that I had, and I thought it was kismet. It was so strange on so many levels that so many years later, I would both play and work with his little brother, with Dale.
Yep.
Right. And I was 10 years into working with Wolfman with Dale, still thinking about that time that his brother gave me his autograph when I was 11, But that's the Craig Wolfley that I knew. Of course, you knew him on a very personal level. But it's the Pittsburgh lost the Giant, the game of football lost the Giant. And again, way too close together, way too close together. Two good dudes and not that large of a span of time. So I feel for the family. I feel for, like I said, Ronnie comes to mind. His mom comes to mind. Their mom comes to mind. But it was tough news. It was tough news when you sent that text. And I can't imagine where you're at with it.
Yeah, not great. I mean, I won't lie to everybody, and I don't need to completely peel back the curtain and make this about me. But my wife and I lost a very close friend from college last month as well too. So it's been a tough start to 2025 in that regard. I do take some like I always hate the phrase like I take some sense of comfort because I feel like that sounds kind of callous, but I also think everybody knows what I mean. There's no doubt in my mind where Craig Wolfley's soul rests. He knew Jesus and walked with the Lord as well as anybody you could ever hope to meet. And man, I just know when his father was waiting for him, when Tunch was waiting for him, when his brother Dale was waiting for him there at the pearly gates. My goodness, is he having himself a time? But selfishly, I'll miss the hell out of that man. He was kind as could be to me. Him and Tunch, they had no reason, Jed, to let me sit at their table. You know what I mean? Like I'm a 5'10", 155-pound hockey player for crying out loud. You know what I mean? Like they had no reason to let me sit at their table, but they did, and they embraced me, and I wouldn't be. Obviously, I know so much more about football because of the time that I spent around Tunch. The 3-4 years I got to spend around Tunch pretty much every day, and then the 7 or 8 years that I got to spend around Craig Wolfley pretty much every day. Obviously, I know football tenfold from what I would have of not being around those guys. But I also think I'm a much better husband. I'm a much better father, and hopefully a better kind of citizen of Western Pennsylvania, better neighbor, and all of those things as well too. And yeah, it is a tough one. And to Ron Wolfley, to Craig's wife Faith Wolfley, and then his mom Hoopy, who is now bearing a second son within a year. All of our love, all of our thoughts, and all of our prayers.
And Maverick put out a post, and in true Wolfley style, tough as nails. I mean, said all the right things. Maverick, and by Maverick, I mean, for those who don't know, that's Dale's son,
Yep.
which would be Craig's nephew. Put out a thoughtful post. Look, the Wolves are tough folks in all the right ways. They
They're hard
really
edge.
are.
They're hard edge, Jed.
They're hard edge. And all I can imagine is, with you mentioned Tunch, now we got Craig, now we got Dale. I mean, I promise you, they immediately passed through the pearly gates, and the fight started 30 seconds later over who gets to trap the three technique.
That's
I mean,
exactly
I promise
right.
you, that's what the battle's over right now. Who gets to earhole that guy when he doesn't see it coming? That's what the fight's over right now. There might have been a quick hug, but immediately the argument over who gets to pull
No
on the
doubt.
trap.
No
So,
doubt.
yeah, tough. And Wes, I wish the tough stuff stopped there,
Yeah. I know
but
you
it
have
doesn't.
another tough one to share with some ties here.
We were talking about this tragic symmetry that you and I have been dragged into this year. You lost a dear friend, maybe your wife's best friend, young lady, one of my wife's better friends, who wasn't quite 40 yet, the day after Valentine's Day, was taken by cancer, and it shocked the entire community. And well, in addition to that, this morning I started my day. First of all, a handful of days ago, I found out that a dear friend had very quickly gone into hospice. He was diagnosed with cancer last summer, and had been struggling as of late, and really struggling in the last week to 2 weeks. And last week went into hospice, so we knew things were in a tough spot. And this is Mark Lowden. And if you grew up in north central West Virginia at any time during the 1980s, the name Mark Lowden is near and dear to you. He was an icon on the evening news at WDTV, famous for handling the news, the sports, and the weather. They did a promotion for a number of years. Mark Lowden, he's everywhere. And boy, was he. I first met him when he was up and about covering our Tucker County high school games when I was in high school. Probably my sophomore year is when I first met Mark. And through the years, he was around quite a bit. We hit it off during his time at WDTV. And then, as fate would have it, when he left the broadcast industry, he got into the marketing industry, and he became our PR director at Glenville State right in the midst of Rich's run. So he was there for, it's because of Mark Lowden. And this was the text that I just sent them a few days ago. Jill, his dear wife, and Mark, because of you, because of your labor and your effort and your work, he was the one who put together the highlight tapes that you can now find on YouTube, the Rich Rodriguez years at Glenville State. Mark traveled with the team, camera on shoulder, went everywhere we went, was a dear, dear friend. He's, I always say that I have this short clique, I wish it was longer, but it's not, of friends who are both sci-fi geek and sports nerd. Like you, like Big Daddy. Mark is on that list. Okay. Mark was tried and true on that list. And so a lot of great memories with me, with Rich, with the whole crew at Glenville. He was responsible for all those videos. He chronicled all that. And then he took the time 10, 15 years ago to publish it on YouTube for all the world to enjoy. So all of us who traveled through there, now forever, our families and grandkids and nephews and nieces and own kids can all watch it and enjoy it because of what Mark did. I started my day today with my phone dinging at 6 a.m. and it was a text from Jill that 2:00 this morning, and by this morning I mean this is Wednesday, Mark had passed. But he's one of these guys, Wes, that he made an impact on so many. When he left Glenville, when he and Jill left, they got married in 97. They moved to Athens, Ohio, and he took a job in the School of Osteopathic Medicine at OU. And what sucks, when the schedule came out, we were all fired up. We were all going to get together. He's right there in Athens. We were all looking forward to it. When WVU goes there next September. But he impacted all those students. I mean, I'm telling you, he started from scratch when he got to Athens. And those people talk about him like he roped the moon. And in many ways, he kind of did. The people at Glenville talk about him like that. But I start back to what I said earlier. If you watched evening news in the 1980s, you can't help but know what Mark Lowden meant to so many households in north central West Virginia. And what you saw on TV, if you remember the personality, he too was larger than life. Nothing fake about him. He was always real. He was always just Mark. And I remember he one time, Wes, and I'll kind of toss it back to you with this. This could go on all night. He somehow pre-internet. This is mid-90s. He found a USS Flag. Now, for the uninformed, that's the G.I. Joe action figure aircraft carrier the size of a Ford pickup truck. Okay. Somehow he found out that somebody was selling one of those outside of Charleston, pre-internet. I have no idea how he even found that out. So he came up to me in the Ville one day. I was probably over in the coach's offices. Hey, can you get your truck and take me to Charleston? I said, what for? Well, I got to get the USS flag. Well, sadly, I knew right away what the USS flag was and what he meant. But the same guy could tell you anything and everything about the most granular statistic in the history of college or pro football. But just a dear man. So warm thoughts, prayers with those that Mark meant so much to, including his dear wife. And it's just I'm tired of this kind of news.
Yeah.
2025 needs to take the turn for the better. So let's try and initiate that. Maybe you and I can pick up a a whip and take to the calendar and get 225 heading in the 2025 head in the right direction because so far it's been a couple rough stretches.
Yeah, I'm ready to get some voodoo dolls to do, I don't know, burn some incense and sage. I don't know what I need to do. Oh man. Jed, I think we we could go back and forth with this for a long time. But to Craig Wolfley, to Mark Lowden, to all their friends, all their families, thank you for leaving the place better than you found it. I think one thing that we all can relate to in these times are you never forget how people make you feel. Some of the memories, some of the details, they might fade, they might not be as clear as you want them to be. They might lose, some of the minutia you might forget over the years, but I think you always remember the way people made you feel. And both of these guys clearly, like I said, left the place better than they found it. And for that, we will always be grateful, and we will certainly always carry them with us. Jed, as we try and make a transition here, I do want to thank our friends at Toothman Ford. Big shout out to JR and everybody at Team Toothman. And thanks to, listen, I'm sure a lot of you listening now had no idea who Craig Wolfley was, who Mark Loudon was, but thank you for letting Jed and I, just take a few minutes there to speak on that. And hopefully for a lot of you that did mean something as well. Jed,
If you have any money, if you have any loose change in your couch, it's not a bad idea to donate to cancer. Different types of cancer
yep,
took
well
these two
said.
great men. It's never a bad time to do that. There's tremendous progress being made in that space in all types of cancer. Trust me, I've lived it for 20 plus years with my wife.
Yep.
So if you have any extra cash laying around, which maybe a lot of folks don't these days, but if you do, pick your favorite cancer cause and maybe give to it. Two different types of cancer took two great men, and these stories are way too plentiful. But we struggled with this before we came on the air, Wes. You and I went back and forth as to whether or not we would even talk about it on air. But then we thought, it's the right thing to do. There's connections to West Virginia. These are good dudes. I'm glad we did this.
Yeah, me too. Like I said, you were the one who kind of had the idea. I am it's been a tough week because Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like we're trying to do a Steelers show and free agency in the NFL, and doesn't really matter. Like we just end up talking about Wolf for 2-3 hours anyways. Who really cares about what happened with DK Metcalf or Justin Fields at this point when you lose somebody like that? But yeah, hopefully, listen, as much as I'm sure a lot of our listeners aren't very familiar or not familiar at all with either of these guys, I'm sure we have plenty of listeners who have been in some pain, or maybe you could just relate to a situation you're going through as well. Cancer is one of those things that affects everybody. And well said by you about different ways to get involved, different ways to help out. Some good news, Jed, that we certainly need here on this program, and just I think in general. And to be fair, it might not be the best news for the WVU football program, but it's certainly great news for our guy Blaine Stewart, who all reports indicate that Blaine is on his way back to the National Football League, taking a job with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and their new head coach Liam Cohen, who was just hired. Or pardon me, did I get that wrong? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? Liam Cohen just left Tampa Bay to go to Jacksonville.
The Buccaneers to go to the Jaguars. That's right.
Sorry, that's where I knew the connection was there, and some of that coaching staff going with him. So obviously some vacancies in Tampa Bay on their offensive side of the football. And again, by all credible reports as we record this, it sounds like Blaine Stewart will be going back to the NFL. Remember, he had spent time with the Steelers and Mike Tomlin, then 2 years in Morgantown, was retained by Rich Rodriguez, but sounds like he's heading back to the National Football League. And again, Jed, selfishly, I'd love to have Blaine around. Love to have a Stewart on staff. I think he's a great recruiter. I think he's done a great job with that tight end position over the last 2 years. But at the same time, too, it's the National Football League, man. And like, if that's where he always saw himself long term, if that's where he always wanted to get back to the NFL, big congratulations, big shout out to Blaine Stewart and what is obviously going to be a huge opportunity here.
It's never made more sense than perhaps right now to depart a college job
Totally.
to go to the NFL with the craziness and the high maintenance that these college jobs have begun, with what's going on with these rosters and the revolving door, and the unpredictability of every roster in America. It always made sense to covet an NFL job to start with, but perhaps now more so than ever. Because of the craziness of the college game, and all that entails if you're a college coach. But I got to say this: here's why I'm kind of excited for Blaine to take the job that he did. It's a good time to be buying some Baker stock. I think it's now he did lose, the offensive architect that was kind of indirectly responsible, or at least in charge of that orchestra in recent years. But Baker's playing some good football. He's settled in as the franchise guy down there. I think the needle's pointing up over the long arc of time for the Buccaneers. It's a quarterback-centric game. If you have your guy, you have your future. So it's not a bad time to be hopping on that staff. When you look at even, without getting too far out in the weeds, when you even look at the division in which they're competing, right? Kind of wide open, right? So some opportunities there for some early hardware back in your second run in the NFL. You're competing against the Falcons, the Panthers, the Saints. I mean, all those teams in the NFC South have some issues. So, happy for Blaine. Get down there. Find your best self. You already had one run with Coach Tomlin in the NFL. You did good work while you were here. As much as I would love to have you be part of this, it's perfectly understandable that you're not. Go do great things and never say never. Maybe a road in the future leads him back to Morgantown once again on a more permanent basis. So.
Yeah, absolutely. But I echo it. Even for a guy like Blaine, we know how much Morgantown, how much WVU, how much WVU football means to him and his family. That lure of the NFL is hard to say no to. The lights are a little bit brighter, the paychecks are a little bit larger, right? All those different things. The travel and the amenities are a little bit nicer, and all those different things in the National Football League. So all the best to Blaine, certainly. As again, by all credible reports, it appears that he is kind of entering the next stage of his coaching career with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we certainly wish him.
How long is it going to be, Wes?
Best
before he's doing top 5 best wing places in Tampa lists on Twitter, right? Just like he was like last week about Morgantown, right? So don't think it doesn't pain Blaine to leave Morgantown. But like you said, the allure sometimes is just too much. But yeah, best of luck to you.
I will tell Blaine this. There are great wings at a hockey dive bar right by where the Tampa Bay Lightning play, called Hat Tricks. So if Blaine's looking for a good dive bar with good wings, make him feel like maybe he's walking into the fish bowl, Hat Tricks down there in Tampa is a good place to start.
You want to make history here, Wes?
Okay.
Here, buy me 15 seconds while I text Blaine congratulations, which I haven't yet.
Sure. Yeah. Another thank you to
new gig.
Another thank you to our friends at Fortis and our buddy Rick Lewis. We all know for roof performance and financial certainty, you gotta visit fortis.us.com. Hey, our buddy Wes says that you need to go to Hat Tricks in Tampa Bay. Try the wings and the Labatt Blue Light. Jed, before we go to break here and talk
a Wes's recommendation short now. I've done that before. He delivers. Yeah.
I don't take food or music recommendations lightly. I can promise you that. If I put my stamp, my seal on the food or the music recommendations, I like to think you're going to be pretty satisfied. Before we go to break, a quick around campus shout out to the men's and the women's basketball teams. Women ranked throughout the entire season, made it to the semifinals of the Big 12 tournament, lost to the eventual champions TCU by 5 points, but they will be comfortably in the tournament as probably a 4 or a 5 seed and certainly have a chance to go on a run. Big shout out to JJ Quinterly for just another outstanding all first team Big 12 type season for one of the best guards in the history of the WVU women's program, which is saying something because they have certainly produced some great ones, including some recent draft picks as well too, which JJ seems well on her way to doing as well. And then to the men's hoops team, I know today, as Jed and I record this, it's Wednesday night. We lost to Colorado in the second round of the Big 12 tournament. I know we would have all liked to have made a little bit of a deeper run, but 19 wins on the regular season. They should still be comfortably in the tournament, barring some just absolute avalanche of bid-stealing teams here in the next few days. To Javon Small, all Big 12 first team, Sincere Harris, all defensive team. Jed, for them to have won 19 games, to have been ranked at one point this season as well, to have 3 top 10 wins and a resume that, by all intents and purposes, 99% looks like they are on their way to the big dance. To go from where the program was last year, while we're all a little disappointed, that they lost in their first game in the Big 12 tournament, I think overall it's still been a heck of a year. And now you get a little bit of time to rest up and hopefully make some noise in the dance.
Real quick on the women, talk about hard edge, getting their doors blown off at halftime. A very good TCU team.
Yeah.
They fought tooth and nail to come back and scare the daylights out of TCU in the second half to make that a 5-point game. So hats off to Coach Kellogg and crew. Their work is obviously not done. And on the men's front, what a curious case this Colorado team is. I mean, it's on the one hand, you're looking at, did you expect Colorado to be a 16 seed? Well, okay. At what point did you? Okay, this team started 9-2. They had a win over number 2 UConn. I don't know if you thought they were going to be a top 5 seed in the Big 12 tournament, but at that juncture, that was before the wheels came off, and the wheels did come off.
Yes, they did.
That's where the 16 seed came from. That's kind of why you kind of hope. But as you said, Wes, by any reasonable metric, we overachieved this year when you look at what this roster went through over the course of last offseason. And I would say, but I'm going to stop saying it. I would say, and we did it without our best player, but it's now reached a point where it's officially disrespectful to Javon Small
right, exactly.
to say we did so without our best player, right? We might have done so without our second best player. I don't know, but I'm going to stop saying that because you just can't anymore. It's just not fair, right? I can't in one hand say that and the other hand complain that he's not Big 12 player of the year, right? So anyway, we were talking about possible seeds. Who knows? It depends where you look. But I kind of sort of hope I'd like to see him land at a 10 because, and the other reason I say that, and there's no math or no science behind this at all, it just seems to me when you look at the matchups in the opening round, there always seems to be a couple 10-7 upsets.
Always.
There just do. So I'll take my chances R10 against whoever 7. So if it lands that way, great. If not, I'll take an 11-6. I'll take whatever we can get, but
I'm with you. Just for some reason, just off the vibes. You know what I mean? The vibes of a 10 seed. The vibes of a 10 seed feel like we could go big game. We could go big game hunting there and maybe make a little bit of noise.
And here's the beauty of it, Wes. It has you're truly playing with house's money right now. And what I mean by that is this very much has the feel of, and it has since really Tucker's been down. We felt like you're building toward next year. You're building toward next year. Well, what better way to build toward next year than find a way to surprise a few teams in the tournament and finish with something like that to get a little buzz going into the offseason, into the portal windows, into the recruiting. And so let's continue to build toward next year with a strong finish in the tournament this year. You don't want that sour taste of losing to a 16 seed Colorado to be. So you don't want to come out and lay flat in the first round of the NCAA tourney. Come on, let's put our best foot forward, see if we can scare a team or two, and take it from there and see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, you win at least one here in the tournament, and you'd hit that 20 win mark, which I don't think 20 wins quite means as much now in college basketball as it used to. There's some additional games and preseason, tournaments at the beginning of the season where you get an extra 3-4 games in now and things like that. But I think we all would have signed in blood for a 20-win season, back just a few months ago.
You know what? It's kind of like 1,000-yard rusher in the NFL. but it still has a nice taste. It
Exactly
still
right.
has
Exactly right.
And like you said, who would have thought we'd even be discussing this?
No doubt.
Even come
No doubt.
close to discussing it. So
No
here
doubt.
we are.
So yeah, it's firmly March. Conference tournaments, this week and this weekend, and then we'll be dancing next week. So to Coach Kellogg, to Coach DeVries, to everybody on both of those men's and women's teams, go get them, go raise some hell, go make some noise for the Mountaineers here in March. We have got to get to a break. When we come back. Some developments around spring practice, a familiar face back in the fold, and everybody, you better leave your TikTok app outside. You better leave it at home, all right? Remove it from your cell phone or don't go on it when you're at the facility. Of course, some funny comments by Rich Rodriguez making national news. We'll get into all of that when we return here on the other side. You are in the gut.
For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement, with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations. With more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed.
Nobody supports the blue and gold Mountaineers like Toothman Ford. With over 20 NIL deals and counting, Toothman Ford continues to rally behind our student athletes. And it's time we rally and support the dealer that supports the Mountaineers. Not only does Toothman Ford offer the best prices in the state on pre-owned, their never over MSRP campaign on new Fords guaranteed to save you thousands. Drive with pride all season long, knowing you're supporting the dealer that fuels our Mountaineers. Toothman Ford, where cars cost less, in Grafton and at toothmanford.com.
At Johnston Equipment, you'll find the area's best selection of Coyote tractors and loaders. Stop in and see all our compact equipment, with multiple options available including full cab, diesel, rubber tires, or track loaders. You'll find attachments and implements to get anything done, and low-rate financing options. Johnston Equipment has what you need to get the job done right. Come see the full line today at Johnston Equipment on Route 33 between Weston and Buchanan, or visit JohnstonEQ.com.
Back in the gun here as we roll along. It's time to take a look at some spring ball moving and shaking for your Mountaineers. And Jed, I tell you what, all press is good press. I think that's the old public relations cliche. But man, there has been some I don't want to use the term controversial because that makes it seem usually like there's something bad that happened. And this is not controversial. It's just maybe a hot topic, a very kind of current day conversation. And that, of course, is I'm looking. I just went to Google during our little break there, and I put in WVU football on Google. And the top things that are coming up: ABC News, Fox News, CBS, People Magazine. West Virginia University football coach says he's banning players from dancing on TikTok. WVU football coach bans his players from TikTok. Absolutely hilarious. It's on SportsCenter. It's on ABC. It's on Fox. It's on People Magazine, and anywhere and everywhere in between. Rich Rodriguez talking about how dancing in your tights is not hard edge, and the message that the image that you want to put out there in the program. Jed, I think this is one of those classic things that just because it is popular in our lexicon now, right? Like TikTok and dancing and how that's, very connected as being a millennial thing. But I just think this, if you actually watch the interview and listen to the audio, he's being Rich. And I'm sure he means this. He doesn't want the guys in the facility dancing around and with their team gear on and all that stuff. But I also think it's just a very convenient, let's make a mountain out of this molehill. Oh my goodness, an old school coach is banning all these young kids from doing a young kid thing. I don't think it's that serious, but I do just also think it's pretty hilarious.
It's all of a sudden the national media has positioned Rich as he's the preacher on Footloose, right? It's like, or am I getting my dance? I'm not a dancer, so am I getting my dancing movies mixed up? Was it the Patrick
No,
Swayze one?
I
Was it the
think you're
Kevin
right.
Bacon one?
I think you're
Okay,
right.
all right. Yeah. But yeah,
I think it was
very much
Footloose.
so.
Dirty Dancing, I don't think was the preacher. I think that was
Okay,
Footloose. I
yeah,
think you were right.
he's trying to shut him down like the preacher was. But it kind of made perfect sense the way he described it. He's like, look, at the end of the day, we're trying to build a culture here that is all about toughness, hard edge, uh, all those types of things. In other words, there's no window dressing to it. Do we really want to put that out in the world? Wearing tights, dancing around the locker room. So who knows who might get a hold of that and use it in a video or use it in preparation or use it to poke fun. Who knows what you might do? There's no reason to
Right.
put that out in the world. I just, at the end of the day, and this is the old curmudgeon in me, but I've always told my wife that I've been a grouchy old man since I was 16. I've been training for this for a long time, right? So I settle right in. I'm not much of a dancing aficionado. I never understood that side of things, but certainly not in a locker room unless it's after a big win, and then dance away. I mean, dance all you want to.
That's
Hey,
exactly
look, if
right.
you go out and beat a ranked team, dance to your heart's content. But it was a couple months ago. It was earlier this year that we cycled through something kind of sort of similar. Like when Rich was on Tony's podcast, he said something about TikTok, and I saw some media outlets take what he said and run with it and wildly misconstrue it to the point one of them even said, hey, this was a national one, saying, oh, well, Rich Rodriguez is banning TikTok. Because I remember asking somebody on staff at the time, like, well, what are they talking about? It's like, he's not doing that. He didn't say that. It's just don't be an idiot. And once again, that was reiterated today. Look, to me, it makes perfect sense. And trust me, in segment one, all that footage that we talked about Mark Lowden shooting, Mark was also in the locker room after big wins at Glenville, and you saw nothing but people. We were all dancing like idiots. There's a time and a place for everything. And I'm not a TikTok guy anyway. I'm more of a Twitter/X, whatever we're calling it now, guy.
Same.
But you're right. It's a movement of teens and those in their 20s. So if you're taking something away from, that's what you're taking away from. But at the same time, I always think these are kind of like control questions that psychiatrists might ask you, like just to kind of smoke you out. Like, really? You're going to get upset that I'm telling you can't dance on really? And you want to be part of what we're doing here? I mean, nobody's going to have any issues with this. Nobody is going to have any issues with this. There's not going to be a dust up. There's going to be nothing come of this. It was a joke. I like the fact that we had our brand in the media. Like my buddy from Minnesota, I talked to him today, and he's like, "What's your coach doing?" I said, "See,
Exactly
it's
right.
it's
Exactly
everywhere.
right.
It's literally everywhere." It's like, so anyway, much ado about nothing. What did we just spend 10 minutes talking about? Really, a nothing burger. That's what this is.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, it is funny, it is humorous, it is a good storyline for this time of year that people want to discuss and kick around and all that stuff. But I think it's like a mountain out of a molehill. I think your example of the preacher and dancing is a pretty good one. But like, again, you're absolutely right. It's not like he's going to make all these kids, walk into his office and pull out their cell phones and delete the TikTok app off of their
Yeah.
off of
Is
their
it waltzing
phones.
or dancing? That's pushing the envelope too far.
Jed, like again, in our society now, everybody likes to make things like a clear cut black and white issue, right? But I think this is one of those things that like there's a lot of gray area. You know what I mean? And it's just it's not Rich saying you're not allowed to ever dance, you're not allowed to ever be on TikTok, and if you ever dance on video, I'm gonna skin you. It's a every you guys are athletes. It's the social media age, especially now with the money involved in collegiate athletics. You guys are under a spotlight more often or more now than ever before, and you're more accessible now than ever before. Just be smart about what you're putting out there, how you're representing this program, how you're representing the logo, how you're representing the university. Every coach, I promise you, has similar type, or at least they better be having similar types of conversations with their teams. Rich just has the funny delivery and personality and old school edge to really make it kind of take off nationally.
Yeah, and I kind of got the vibe from it. It was almost to me, and I've had a lot of experience in reading between the lines with Rich through the years. Okay. He's usually very direct with everything, but everybody has things between the lines. And I took that as don't do anything stupid on social media.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, that probably includes dancing on TikTok. That's kind of how I took that. Now, the overriding message, it's almost as if he's saying, look, today's athlete is not like yesterday's athlete. You've heard me and Owen talk about this, how the game's changed. It's more individualized. And I'm not saying all kids have been afflicted with the disease of me. No, you go get yours. I get it. It's different now. But it's more about the individual sometimes than the team. And Rich is kind of even willing to say, look, I'll make concessions way more than I used to on that front. But here's where you got to meet me halfway, right?
No doubt.
I'll let you go out and be individuals.
That's fair.
And there might have been a time in the past when I wouldn't let you do that. But now I get it. Things have changed. I'm changing with them. Go be individuals, but just to a certain extent. Don't be stupid, right? As an individual. That's kind of the way I took it.
It's even if you trust your kids, you still give them a curfew, right? I think some bumper rails for these guys, and as long as they don't go off the tracks, they're not going to have any problems. And this is going to be a nothing burger going forward, certainly. But still a funny story to discuss here for a few minutes. And like I said, you put WVU football into Google and Fox and ABC and CBS and People Magazine, like it's hilarious. As we all know, TikTok is kind of a big thing.
You know one of the biggest addicts of TikTok that I know of?
Uh-oh.
Guess who it is? You're never going to guess.
Owen Schmidt.
Rick Trickett.
Wow. That would have taken me a long time to get there.
He might kill me for saying that. But, he's addicted to TikTok, or at least he has been in the past. So, Rick Trickett.
That's hilarious.
Okay, not Travis, not Clint, not Chance.
Right.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Rick. Yeah.
Hey, he's always been hip. He's always been with the times, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Another thank you.
Case on,
Another thank you to our friends at Johnston Equipment for being a presenting sponsor of ITG. Now at Johnston Equipment, you can get 0% financing for 72 months, plus a free loader on select Coyote models in stock. You got to visit Johnston Equipment, Route 33 between Weston and Buchanan. And Jed, as we kind of get to the end of this episode and some spring ball discussion here, we mentioned a familiar face in Blaine Stewart that is seemingly departing the program for a job in the National Football League, but a familiar face returning to the program. When I think of the most famous athletes to come out of retirement for the rest of my life, I'll think about Michael Jordan, I'll think about Mario Lemieux, and I will think about Preston Pac-Man Fox. Yes, Jed, P. Fox back at spring practice.
P. Fox back at spring practice. And, let's walk through the last couple years what Preston Fox had been through and been subjected to. Not only did he suffer injuries, he had a scary injury. Like that injury was this I think it was the same game that Zach got hurt. Wasn't that when Preston caught that ball up the seam and took that shot to the ribs and was taken to the hospital? Wasn't that Baylor? Wasn't that the same? I'm trying. Were we in Waco when that happened? But yeah, it was. Yeah. He was struggling to breathe on the sidelines. I mean, it was very scary. And he missed the bowl game. So it wasn't your typical injury. I mean, it takes the guts of a burglar to come back from that type of injury and still dip into the briar patch and make catches the way he did. But so it was perfectly understandable under all circumstances that, the coaching transition one or the other, I kind of felt that even if it was the same coaching staff that he knew and was comfortable with, he probably would have done the same thing for the same reasons. But, and Rich was like, look, I didn't pursue one or the other. I kind of thought he was out of eligibility, and so he moved on. And well, next thing you know, he gets a call and he's, hey, I'd be interested in coming back. And Rich is like, sure, I'd love to talk to you about it because first of all, he's a great kid. And you can't be around the locker room, around the staff without hearing nothing but good things about P. Fox. Nobody's going to say a cross word about him. Why would you? And he's about all the right things. He's a tough kid. He's a physical kid. He's a fearless kid. He's the type of kid who will absolutely have that hard edge that Rich so covets. But versatility. In addition to the toughness, there's a certain element of versatility. And that's not necessarily maybe what you think of when you think of Pete Fox, but that's a guy who you could pepper across the formation and he could populate any of those receiving positions. And right now, when you're looking at the roster and when you're looking at the names at the X, at the Z, at the slot positions, I mean, we have some names there. I think we kind of sort of lack some numbers. And if you have one guy that can come in and offer some help, some immediate help at not just one spot, but potentially all the spots, uh, there's a lot to be said for that. So, I mean, he's played on the perimeter, he's played in the slot, he's demonstrated the skill set to do both effectively. So why not? Plus, oh, by the way, pretty daggone handy punt returner too, as a return specialist. So this is a guy who can very versatile football player, very tough football player. He's about all the right things. Great addition to the locker room. Welcome back with a giant bear hug. Couldn't come at a better time because that room needs numbers. Go ahead and say your piece, and we'll get into some of the names right now that we're looking at.
Yeah. No, I think what you just touched on right there is the most important part of this for me. He's a welcome addition to that room. He has a skill set that is unique, that is versatile, and that is exactly what that group needs right now. There's a lot of question marks about that wide receiver position, a lot of new faces, and this Preston Fox being back in the fold, Jed might not even probably won't be the last move for that wide receiver room. I'm sure we'll have some more imports and exports before we get to Labor Day weekend against Robert Morris. Preston Fox, I think he fits the mold of a Rich Rodriguez team and a Rich Rodriguez player. I don't think that. I know that he fits the mold of a Rich Rodriguez team and a Rich Rodriguez player. I think he's got a versatile skill set where you can use him in a lot of different ways across that offense and on special teams. And it's always good to just have he knows West Virginia, he knows WVU, he knows WVU football. It's when you've got a big period of transition, when you've got 40-some, 50-some, maybe we even get up to 60-some new players. Having guys that know the university, know the program's history, know the state. I think that's always good as well too. This makes a ton of sense to me. Even if Preston Fox, doesn't go out there this year and light it up and have a bunch of touchdowns and receiving yards and special team splash plays, I still think that this is a no-brainer to bring a guy like this back into the fold.
Makes perfect sense. Again, when you look at some of the kids that we have populating that room right now, you have some options at each of the positions, but I'm not so sure I'm comfortable, and I don't know if the staff's comfortable where the numbers are right now. But from the top, you'd be looking at like a Cam Vaughn, a long kid who's repping at X. He has that perimeter type body. If you look at the skill set that the X traditionally has, he did much the same thing when he was at Jacksonville State as a freshman last year. He's a football player, 6'2", buck 90. The way you want the skill set that you want at X, typically you're going to be able to isolate that guy in single coverage more frequently than the other positions because your formation will be kicked away from him. He'll sometimes be to the boundary as that lone receiver, so he might be isolated against that boundary corner. So you need a guy who can take advantage of that. In a perfect world, a guy big enough and physical enough to take advantage of that. I think Cam Vaughn is a great starting point. He's not the only kid in that room. Again, we have some other transfers looking at it. Torrey Johnson's back in the mix. And when you look at Z, that's where it gets interesting because I think this room at large, you have to start all conversations with Jaden Bray. Because bear in mind, we were excited about Jaden Bray coming out of Oklahoma State. We saw tremendous things in camp from Jaden Bray, but then he got dinged up and he only was able to play in 5 games. But he made an impact in a couple of those games. He's a big physical presence on the perimeter. He is a physical monster. He really is. If you can keep him healthy, he can be the answer to a lot of issues for us on the perimeter at that Z spot. But P. Fox being not only in that room, but in the other rooms, even if you want to go to the slot, remember Gallagher's back and he's becoming more of a pure slot receiver, a guy who repped nothing but quarterback in high school. So you can only expect there was a low ceiling on him at that position as a true freshman. But he came along last year and developed some skills as a slot receiver. But in addition to that, Wes, I'm excited about a couple of these transfers. You got the Bowie kid that was a Martinsburg kid in high school at West Virginia that came from Jack State. He has some twitch to him. He has some burst to him. And then when you look at this man Singleton from Eastern Michigan, That's a kid with some twitch. I saw some things from both of those guys up close and personal in practice that I was like, all right, now we got something. Okay, move along. Move. They're tough to bring down in space. So you got some kids that are and others too populating the slot positions, populating the perimeter. But I'm telling you, a guy that you can be as potentially comfortable with as Preston Fox makes life easier across the board. There's other transfers that we'll get. I don't see a whole lot of reason to get into specific personnel discussions, quite frankly, until we know what specific personnel is going to look like.
Exactly right.
Come
exactly
May,
right.
come June, right? So that's kind of where things are at right now. But Preston Fox, I'm terribly excited to have him back because he's kind of the catch-all, and he's productive at all those spots.
Well said. And if Jed, if that's all you got, I think that's a good place to wrap this one up as we put a bow on another week here, another bow on spring, another week of spring ball, getting closer and closer to that spring game on April 5th, which by the way was just announced as a 1 p.m. Kickoff there for the spring game. Tickets are free. You just have to claim them online to get what will hopefully be a nice early sunny day there in April.
There's some other stuff going on around it, festivities and things like that. If you want to,
exactly,
on the school website, they have all that charted, I'm sure. But yeah, I'd like to see a decent turnout. I don't know if you're going to see a lot of real actual football, but you're going to get a chance to see a little bit of something. So, Rich Rod 2.0, don't miss your first chance to pop the hood and take a look at a little bit of something.
Exactly right. And hey, I'll do a shameless plug. Now, again, remember, when we did our attendance and deer camp and everything conversation,
right.
I'm the one who said that like Bruce Springsteen could ask me to sit on stage with him for a concert and I'd still have to think about it if it was during a WVU football game. Like, so right. take my shilling with a grain of salt, okay, as I shill for the program in the spring game here. But if you're someone like me, like has young kids, or just maybe people who might be a little more difficult to get around with. Maybe it's someone more elderly, whatever the case may be. The spring game is great to bring people like that. You can park wherever, so you can park close to the stadium right there. Easy to get in and out. No lines for the bathrooms, no lines for the concession stands. You're not going to deal with any traffic getting in and out of there. Maybe very minor, the most minor.
Pictures on the field after the game. They're allowing that.
Take pictures on the field after the game. They've got a whole area with bounce houses and slides and all those different things. They give away schedule posters. And like my daughter got a pair of WVU sunglasses last year that she still loves and wears. So it is just a lot of fun. It's a fun Saturday afternoon out with the family that won't cost you much money, if any at all, and is very casual, very low key. And you get to go hang out at Mountaineer Field and watch some of our guys for a couple hours, which is always fun as well too. So there's my shameless plug for the spring game. All right, and you know what? All right, here, Jed, real quick for you.
Okay. Yep.
For the people that are watching on YouTube, this will land more
Please
of effect, but I'll paint the picture too. In my hand here, you will see this is the tab of a Natty Light keg from my sophomore year of college. It's a tab of a Natty Light keg signed by number 5 Chief himself, Pat White. Wow. Where did I get Pat White to sign this tab of a Natty Light keg? Perhaps my most prized sports memorabilia possession. None other than the 2010 WVU spring game. All right, so you never know who you're going to pop into when you're walking in the concourse and you see him and you go, oh my goodness, I got to get this guy's autograph. And all you have on you is the tab of a Natty Light keg. And so you have Pat White sign the tab of a Natty Light keg. Maybe magic will happen to you as well.
See, I came ready in 1981 with a golden t-shirt, right? Goldie. I had the golden t-shirt, but how did I miss this, Wes? We're closing out here. We've done an entire episode, and I'm just now noticing your 1984 Blue Bonnet Bowl. And you talk about perfect symmetry. Guess who scored a touchdown in the 1984 Blue Bonnet Bowl? Ronnie Wolfley.
Ronnie Wolfley? Yeah. I guess it was meant to be. I did not. Now that you mention that, I remember that he was on this team. But that was meant to be. I did not know that when I put this shirt on before we recorded. Yes, again, to paint the picture for those watching on YouTube or not watching on YouTube, just listening, I am wearing a 1984 It's not from 1984, but it's designed to be a throwback style T-shirt of WVU's 1984
cool, yeah.
blue bonnet bowl there. And yes, Ron Wolfley did score an important touchdown in that game. And we will continue to pray and be thinking of the Wolfley family and the Lowden family this week as we move along. Thanks to everybody for rocking and rolling with us on this episode of ITG. We were all over the place, from the emotional side of things to football to hoops to TikTok and dancing. This was we covered all the bases on this one, that's for sure. So thanks to
it was an eclectic episode.
It really was. Sometimes people love that. Sometimes people hate it. We'll see what the reaction's like.
See how many unfollows we get from this.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But for our producer and co-host, Skylar Callahan, the beer truck Big O, and the signal caller Jed Drenning, I'm Wes Schuler. The one thing that we ask of you is please be an ear and tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast. Take care, everybody. Thanks for rocking and rolling with us on this edition of ITG. Be well. Tell somebody that you love them. Hug your family members a little bit extra close this week, and we'll talk to you soon. You've been in the gun.
ITG.
The fun doesn't have to stop here.
Be sure to hit subscribe and never miss an episode.
If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback,
be sure to follow us on X at In the Gun Podcast.
Join us again next time.
Until then,
tell an ear to tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast.
This mission is over. It's over.